So when Jenny asked me if I'd be willing to speak today, my immediate answer was no. Because I've been going through a health struggle and I just felt like I can't do it. And I remember I was sitting at the table having supper with my husband. I told him, Jenny's asking me to speak for the mother-daughter brunch, and I can't do it. He said, yes, you can. Even if you do it for your granddaughters, you can't do it. And so, because my husband was pushing me, I said, okay, I'll try. So today, what I have to say, I thought a lot about LEAP. LEAP stands for Lillian, Eva, Anna, and Pearl. That's the way my brother remembers them because he had a stroke, and he's always like, how's LEAP? And that's their birth order, so it's a way of remembering them. But the things that I brought out from Proverbs 31, and when she told me Proverbs 31 was the theme, I was kind of like, ugh, not that again. But, and please understand that I got a lot out of this chapter, but I've heard so many speakers speak on it, and what can I say about that? But the Lord did bring out some things for me. When Lillian and Eva were young, my husband used to take them on walks. We don't do it as much now because different factors, the little ones didn't have this experience, but Lillian and Eva, he always said, what's the verse that I taught you? Every time we got together with them. So I'm going to have Lillian and Eva say it. Stand up.
Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above you? Proverbs 31:10.
Okay, so he always, from their littlest days, made them memorize that verse. Who can find a virtuous woman? In 1987, when I was 30 years old, my paternal grandmother died in Columbus. At this time, we were young missionaries up in Canada, as Jenny referred to, and we were here in Ohio when she passed away. And on Route 71, going from Columbus to Cleveland, my father reached over from the driver's seat and handed me a little box. And in that box was a very, very large diamond ring. And I never saw my grandmother wear this thing. And in thinking back over it, I understand why she never wore it. But it was a very large diamond, and we were getting ready to fly back to Canada. And because I was her first granddaughter, she had willed this diamond ring to me that had been her mother's, who were hardware store owners in Pennsylvania. So I remember I was thinking about, I had it on, I could wear it right away. It wasn't set, it was just this big, huge rock. And I remember thinking, I'm going on this airplane, I feel funny with this thing on. So I turned it around so nobody could see what was on my hand. And remember, we're young missionaries, we didn't have a lot of extra money, but I had this large diamond ring. In fact, my father had no idea of the value, but they knew that it was a real diamond. And I had to take it to a jeweler to find out how much it was worth. And I had it appraised by a guy up in Canada, a jeweler, and when he saw it, he was like, never seen anything like this before. And it ended up being valued at a good sum of money back in 1987. And, you know, here we are, I have this diamond ring, we don't own a home, we don't have very much, except our missionary support, and what am I going to do with this? It's not the kind of thing you can wear every day and wash dishes and do all this stuff that you have to do. So I got it appraised, and I remember, you know, you're probably all wondering, wow, you know, I remember in Canadian money, the guy said it was like $12,000, but that's Canadian. It ended up to be less than that US. But my husband, you know, we both needed to own a home because we felt like we needed to start, even though we lived up in Canada. We were moving from one house to another, and we needed to buy a house. So I could have had that thing reset. Would have been beautiful. There's been times in my life when I thought, why did I do it? But I ended up selling that to the jeweler. Because, to make a long story short, the down payment on our first home was worth more than that diamond ring was worth to me. It gave us a home. We had a down payment to buy a house, which ended up, when we ended up coming back to the States, we still had the money from the house that we owned up in Canada. And we were able to buy a home. So in our scripture for today about the virtuous woman, the virtuous woman is said to be more valuable than rubies. And to us, our house was more valuable than that diamond ring was. Now today, I don't know about you, but I don't really value rubies. But I looked up, I did some study. And when my father remarried his second wife, which was a hard time for me, but he did, and she was a very nice lady. I remember when she showed me her ring, and this ring had diamonds. In fact, the diamonds are actually in my channel band ring, but it had rubies all over it with the diamonds. And I thought, why did she do that? Why couldn't she just have the diamonds? I didn't like rubies. So when my father died, he was trying to sell that ring, and she had already passed, and I didn't really like the ring. But when he died, it hadn't sold, and I had to go to the jeweler, another jeweler, and the jeweler said, I can put those little diamonds in a ring for you. That would be this ring, and just make a channel band out of it, which he did. And he gave me the rubies back in a Ziploc bag, which I tossed. But in reading, I found out that rubies are the world's rarest gemstones. Job compared wisdom in rubies in Job 28:18. He says, no mention will be made of coral or of pearls. Pearly. For the price of wisdom is above rubies. And even in Proverbs 3:15, she, which is wisdom, is more precious than rubies. So this was a rare gem, and this virtuous woman is hard to find. More valuable than rubies. And so in thinking about what this woman is like in Proverbs 31, in Bible times, rubies were like a diamond. And it's something very hard, it's a very hard stone. And the Bible refers to virtuous women in other places, in Ruth. When Boaz found Ruth, if you remember that story, he said, and now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou require. For all the city knows that you are a virtuous woman. So this morning, I want to, first of all, everybody has the Proverbs 31 on the bulletin or program thing. I just wanted us to read the passage in unison first, and then I'm just going to draw out some virtues from the passage. So let's go ahead and start and read together. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She picketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Thank you. So I'm not going to attempt to explain all the verses in Proverbs 31, but what I did do, thinking about my granddaughters especially, is I pulled out some virtues. And you say, what's a virtue? What's a virtuous woman? According to definition, virtues are a good, desirable quality. So these are things that you should put in your life, good qualities. So today, I just want to look at the big picture. I picked 4 things about the virtuous woman. There's a lot of things in this passage, but only 4 here. The first one is the valuable virtue of fearing the Lord. And I want you to go all the way to the end in verse 30, because even though it's at the end of the passage, I don't see how you can do these virtues without fearing the Lord. So in verse 30, it says, favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. So this first quality about fearing the Lord, you can't do it without true salvation. And if you're going to be a virtuous woman, you must be saved. When I was 11 years old, and probably before that, because I was brought up in a Christian home, I prayed to ask the Lord to save me. But I always had doubts, especially at night. When I was going to sleep, I'd be like, what if I die tonight? And I remember one specific time, I remember calling for my father, who was a rock in my life. And he came and he said, Beth, the only way to know for sure that you're going to heaven is to claim 1 John 5, 11 and 12. And that says, and this is the record, that God hath given to us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He that hath the Son hath life, and he that hath not the Son of God hath not life. There must be a time in your life, my granddaughters and everyone else, when you've placed your faith in Christ. Not baptism, not the Mass, not being the daughter of a pastor, but in Jesus Christ. And that would be my desire for my granddaughters and all of you here today, that you know Jesus as your Savior, that you're trusting him to get you to heaven. So to fear the Lord, you have to have salvation. The second quality, and we just discussed it at the table over here, is prayer. Whether you're young or old here this morning, you need to learn to pray. I learned this from my parents. I used to come downstairs in our split-level house, and my parents would be on their knees in the living room, sometimes crying. And I still remember that there used to be dents in the couch from where they would kneel and put their elbows up there and pray. So I saw it, and I saw my father, whenever I presented a problem, he would always say, we have to pray about this. And recently, I had some medical tests, because I'm not feeling 100%, as I said. And I had a test. The tech, which I don't think they're supposed to do this, but the tech said, oh, you have I don't really want to go into it, but she said, you have something, you know. So I thought, after I had the test, the next day I called the doctor. There was you know how he says, press 1 for the doctor, press 2 for the nurse, press 3 to get results. So I pressed 3 to get results. This is Tuesday, after I had it on Monday, because they told me they would be there that night, to the doctor. No response. So Wednesday, I called the doctor. Press 3, result. Nothing, no answer. I kept doing that till Friday. So finally on Friday, I thought, I'm pressing 1 now, so I can make an appointment, so I can talk to somebody. That was why. So I pressed 1, and I got the lady. She goes, oh, Dr. Brzezowski's on vacation. He's been on vacation all week. So I thought it would have been really nice if somebody would have told me he was on vacation. But I thought about that, how I was waiting for an answer. And I thought, have you ever waited for the Lord to answer a prayer? Kind of like that. But the Lord answers. And in this time, when I was going through this, I read Psalm 99, verses 6 through 8. It says, Moses and Aaron among his priests, and Samuel among them, that call upon his name, they called upon the Lord, and he answered them. And I just took that verse, and I thought, that's right. It's the Lord that's going to answer my prayer. And Moses and Aaron and Samuel called on the Lord, and he answered them. The Lord will answer when you pray. You know, I have to say that as I was thinking about this point, I was like, Lord, it seems like you're not answering me. But then, as time has gone on, I realized the Lord answered. Maybe not in a clear way, right away, but it slowly shows you the way. And I just want to challenge the young and the old today, and I'll probably talk to both of you. The Lord will answer. You know, even when you're young, you go through things. School, friendships, health, college, marriage, church. Take it to the Lord in prayer. That's what the song says. And Jeremiah 33:3 says, call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things which you don't know. And Crystal's mom, Sharon was saying that, I was telling her how I have this fear of freeways. I hate to drive on the interstate. It's just, I don't like it. And I try not to do it. And my husband's gracious enough not to say, you can do whatever. He said I could do this, but he doesn't like that either. So he puts up with my fear. But she said, when she tries to merge, she always prays before it. And I thought, yeah, it's, you know, so many things that you go through, you have to pray. And to fear the Lord, prayer is a really important part of it. Next thing, I'm trying to hurry on here, is be active in your church. Another part of my Bible reading, when I was going through this time, is I read about the call of Samuel. And you remember what Eli told Samuel when he heard the Lord calling? He said to go back. And when he heard the Lord calling, to say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. And that's really why we're here on this earth, to be servants. Now, I know a lot of you do a lot in the church. I heard my son, I listened to a live stream, I think it was Easter. I listened to the live stream, and I heard him say that Marlene and Debbie had done the Easter breakfast for so many years. He asked them how many. I don't think they said how many, but I know some of you cook, some of you clean, some of you plant flowers and bring in arrangements, some of you visit or have Bible studies with your neighbors. If you're young, like my granddaughters, you might be saying, well, what can I do? And it also blessed my heart recently to see the new little choir sing, because Lillian and I believe Clara, they were in the choir. And that is serving the Lord. It's a part of serving the Lord. And maybe some of you play an instrument. That's the whole goal of learning to music, is to serve the Lord, because that's the whole reason we're here on this earth. And that is something, playing an instrument or singing. My little granddaughter Anna sang a really pretty song in a school concert all by herself, and it brought tears to my eyes to hear her sing that. And that's what I want them to do. I want them to be active, doing what they can for the Lord. Now, maybe there's somebody you could just be a friend of. Some older lady might like to be your friend, even though you're young. And Some people like to write notes. I have this friend that was my college dorm supervisor named Virginia Sheets. I don't know if Tracy would remember. Remember? Virginia. Well, she's still my friend, all the way from Bob Jones in 1979. And she does calligraphy. And she sends cards for birthdays, Christmas, Easter. And they're the most beautiful cards. And every time my husband gets one, he even gets them. He puts them up on the dining room table and he just looks at the envelope a lot of times. It's just so encouraging. And there's things that even the young can do to show they fear the Lord. First point. Second point, the valuable virtue of being a hard worker. Look at verse 13. Verse 13, Proverbs 31:13. She seeketh wool and flax, but I want you to look at the second part. She worketh willingly with her hands. So the valuable virtue of being a hard worker, working willingly with your hands. We don't read anything in this passage about leisure. But if you read women's magazines, it's pretty much all about leisure. She's like a lot of times on the beach, or, carve out time, go to the spa, take a relaxing trip, unwind at Starbucks. And I'm not really against any of those things, except I don't really like Starbucks coffee. I like Frappuccinos, but I don't like their coffee. But it's not about us, really. Now, we do have to relax. And we do have to take time for ourselves. But in this passage, this lady is pretty busy. Believe me, I did not study into what all these verses mean. But she was busy doing things. Let's look at just some verses of the things that she did. She got up early, verse 15. She rises while it's yet night to give meat to her household. She stayed up late. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good, verse 18. Her candle goeth not out by night. So she was up early. She stayed up late. She was working. What was she doing? She was doing a lot of stuff. Notice this woman was busy inside and out. She gave meat to her household. She planted a garden. And for those of you who are saying, but I work outside the home, she did that too. Verse 24, she maketh fine linen and selleth it and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. So she had some kind of business transactions going on. People say that women really shouldn't work out of the household, I agree with the concept, but I had to do it. And I learned from the experience. I think I was probably more productive when I was working outside the home than I am now. But she was a hard worker. Okay, to the young girls here. Remember I said, young girls? Be a willing worker at home. Notice it says she worketh willingly. I know my granddaughters have to work, but I don't know that they always work willingly. But this lady worked willingly. Now, my mother taught me this concept. Every Saturday morning, we lived in a split-level house. We had a 2.5-bath home. My mother was really into bathroom cleaning. And she would give my brother one, me the other, and she told us, toilet, mirror, bathtub floor, sink, gave us all the stuff to do it. But then she came back to check. And she would check the flange around the toilet, and, she was very into our work habits. And I learned that. She'd come back and say, you didn't clean the mirror, there's spots all over the mirror. So we had to do it again. And, I also, as a young teenager, Jenny mentioned that I like to cook, but my mother had a heart attack when I was in junior high school. At that time, we had a pastor living with us, another pastor, and their family. And the lady wasn't, my father, I don't want to say too much about it, because some of you would know who this is, but my father used to make jokes, actually, about it later on, because she made macaroni salad, and she made enough for it. You know how it is with pasta. she made enough for a couple of weeks. So he was always joking about that macaroni salad. But during that time, I had to step in. And I learned a lot of things about cooking from my mother already. I liked it, I did it. I remember standing on a stool making those little baking mixes when I was like maybe 3 or 4. So I liked it, but one thing I don't really like cleaning. I don't like to do it. If I had a choice, I would bake. But cleaning has to be done. Isn't it funny? Some of us like to clean, and some of us like to cook, and some of us like to decorate, like my daughter-in-law. But we're all different. And we need all of it. And we're required, I was going to mention that, making our beds, practicing our instruments, doing our homework, doing church work. And again, this woman did it willingly. And how many of us complain about our work? I know I complain. I'm not perfect. I don't mean to say that I am. And so, when you're asked to do something, young people, don't complain, pout, or get an attitude. But try to remember that this is work, and this is what this woman did. She worked willingly. Okay, to the older people, under work. Verse 27. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and she eateth not the bread of idleness. Oh boy. How much time gets wasted? For me, it's really easy to waste time, especially with the iPhones and daydreaming, or, I haven't been feeling well, so I just mindlessly sit sometimes. And I think I could have cleaned out something, I could have done this or that, but instead, I'm just sitting there, not being productive. But this lady did not eat the bread of idleness. And it just really stuck out to me that we waste a lot of time. We could be working, doing something for the Lord. And then she mentioned my husband had retired, and now he's trying to do more for the ministry. And a lot of times, he's done a lot over the years without much fruit. But he's always been faithful at it. And sometimes he wants me to go, and I'm just like, I don't feel like going. But then I remember, that's why we're here. We're supposed to be working. And this lady had a valuable virtue of hard work. Number 3. I only had 4. Number 3, the valuable virtue of being selfless and compassionate. Notice how this woman is interested in other people. I would just like to put this out to you. Help me. What verses show that this woman is interested in others? Anybody? Clara? Verse 20 says, she stretches her hands out to the poor. She reaches forth her hands to the needy. She's thinking about other people. Another one? Anybody? 15. She rises also while it's yet night and giveth meat to her household. So she thinks about the poor, her household, her maidens. Is there another one? We got 20, we got 15. There's a couple others. They might be the same, but anybody else?
26, 27.
26 and 27. Yeah, let's look at 27. She looketh well to the ways of her household, again, where she doesn't eat the bread of idleness. So she's looking out for others. I found verse 12, talking about the husband. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. So her husband, her household, the poor, she's looking at other people. Reach outside yourself, girls, and everyone else. Philippians 2:4 says, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. When I was a young teen, I was a really moody one. And, I didn't like to be nice to people. And my parents would not let me come to the table with a bad attitude. In fact, my dad had a way of making that change before I could come and, eat. Also, I grew up in a church, people would speak to me. I didn't feel like being nice to them. I didn't feel like looking at them. I was shy. But my mother used to say, when people speak to you, look at them, smile at them, and look outside yourself. Don't be so introverted. And it just really struck me how this woman was always thinking outside of herself. And even now, as I've grown, it's really easy to think about yourself a lot and worry about yourself, as I do that. And maybe you do that too. But when I got to college, I had a roommate that she had never been instructed in moodiness. And she used to throw her purse and her books from the door of the dorm room to her bed, no matter who was in the way. And she would just be very mean and throw tantrums. And I thought, my parents taught me that I'm not allowed to do stuff like that. Well, I feel like it. And, it's not pretty in a teenager or an adult when someone acts like that. And this woman, the virtuous woman, was thinking outside herself. So when you feel down, and you will, try to ask the Lord to help you notice how to be nice, even if it's just your family. It's good to practice on your family being nice. And so this woman was always thinking about her household, the food, the clothes, and that her husband could sit with the elders. Verse 23, how could he be working with the elders outside? She was always, putting him first. Second, be compassionate to those around you. Notice how she helps the poor and needy. Try to be more aware of other people's needs. Women, I think, are generally better at this than men are. Like my husband says, we have new neighbors in the back. I'm going to go give them a tract and talk to them about the Lord. I'm like, don't just take a tract. Take some cookies with you. So I hurried up, baked some cookies, and he went over there with the tract and the cookies. And I just think that women are more aware of other people's needs. And they see, this lady might be hurting. Maybe I should take her to lunch. Maybe I should give her something. Or maybe I should try to cheer her up. My husband and I sometimes attend a church on Sunday night. It's really hard to find a church that has a Sunday night service. We do not because we're really small. So we started going to this church. It's a Baptist church, it's near Cleveland. And this pastor's wife, I never saw a pastor's wife like her really. My mother was good at it, but this lady, she spent so much time with other people. This man died of COVID. She was there. She cleaned up his apartment. She did all this stuff for this man that wasn't even related to her. And she's always cheerful. She doesn't, she just seems like, so I thought, her husband was sick, the pastor, and I thought, I bet she would like someone to do something for her. Because I tend to look at it from a way the pastor's wife would look at it. So I called her up, and we're not members of this church. There's a lot that we don't really agree with, but it's a church that has a Sunday night service, and we can worship the Lord there. And she said, oh, that would be really nice. Oh, yeah, I'll come and get it, she said. I said, well, I'd be glad to bring it. But she came all the way to my house, which is probably a 20-minute drive, picked up the meal, and she just seemed so appreciative that someone thought of her. And I think that maybe the Lord, this virtuous woman, she was always reaching out her hands, trying to help somebody else. And that's a good virtue, to be interested in others. One more point. The valuable virtue of true beauty. Now you might be thinking, and I said before about the spa, and Starbucks, you might be thinking, if I do everything you said, I will look like a hag. And I read my father's sermon on this passage. We have my father's sermon file, and a lot of times when we're studying for things, we get it out. And I got it out, and he made a point about this, that this woman did not neglect her own beauty. Verse 22, she maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. So I don't think that we should not take time for ourselves to be the best that we can be. It's important to be a good testimony in the way that you look, in the way that you dress. I was talking to Amanda and Abigail about this, that I go into Kohl's. I used to always be able to find stuff at Kohl's to wear. I go in there and the stuff just looks so ugly to me. Like I don't want to waste money on it. It just, you can't find stuff that looks nice, really. And it seems like in the world's dress is kind of ugly, a lot of times immodest, and in poor taste. But as a virtuous woman, we should try to be the best we can, remembering that true beauty comes from the Lord. None of us are beauty queens, or we don't think we are, at least. But I'm sure you know somebody that may not be the most beautiful person, but because she is beautiful from fearing the Lord, she's to you beautiful. And that is true beauty. You know, my little granddaughters like to play this thing that we made up called Barbara's Beauty. And it's just because when I was little, I liked to play beauty shop, and I had a doll that came in a chair, you know, that you could fix her hair. So we do that. We polish nails. We pretend like we're washing hair. We used to pretend like we're coming in with money and use Monopoly money. But that beauty is all fading. But the true beauty of what's in your heart is the part that stays. And that's the part that we should care about. Verse 22, that was the one about I don't want to read that again. But it is important to show on the outside what you are on the inside. The other thing is that she cared about her words. Look at verse 26. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. And I thought about our words. I'm sure you all also know people that they look really nice, but they open their mouth, and so much of what comes out of our mouths without consideration is not pleasing to the Lord. And you know, one thing that really gets me is how taking the Lord's name in vain has become just commonplace. That is a violation of the Ten Commandments. Remember, you know, the Lord's saying, what is it? Help me. Don't take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And even in advertisements, you know, they do it. And people, Christians even, that say they're Christians, they take it up and say, what? I don't even want to say, but taking the name of the Lord in vain. And that is not a pretty thing in a virtuous woman. That's one thing, but that's sort of a pet peeve of mine, but it's also a violation of the Ten Commandments. So in her mouth, what's in your mouth? The other thing is that gossip is really easy to engage in as a Christian woman. And what was the virtuous woman's ruler for what she said? Did I write down the verse? She opened her mouth with wisdom, and here's the ruler. Verse 26. In her tongue is the law of kindness. How many times, especially to our families, do we say things that are downright mean, and they're not a picture of the virtuous woman? So when you speak, use the ruler, the law of kindness, in what comes out of my mouth. And so today, who can find a virtuous woman? She's hard to find. She's more valuable than rubies or diamonds. But I hope that we'll be the ones who are fearing the Lord, working willingly for Him, being selfless and compassionate, and trying to be a woman of beauty both inside and out. So that's my message to my granddaughters. And it's also my message to you and to myself. So that is my speech. Would you like to close?